Thank you for the introduction. As Phil mentioned, each of us is going to talk about a different aspect of the private label business. And I'm going to start with just a little bit of top line, sort of generic private label. And then I'm going to focus on private label as it is seen from a marketer's point of view. So I'm going to walk you through some of the things that are involved today in getting your own brand to market. Private label sales worldwide last year, all categories, so this includes food and all kinds of other things, it's not just beauty. The category grew 14% to a little over $86 billion at retail. As you can probably imagine, the recession significantly increased private label business. People were seriously shopping price, and sometimes that is a factor. 60% of consumers tried private label products during the recession, and 80% of those who tried private label products were extremely satisfied, and when asked, said that no, they did not really feel the need to return to national brands. So this is an incredibly significant statistic. We've seen a little bit of softening as the retail business has improved somewhat, but we brought a lot of new shoppers into the private label world in the last couple of years. While the economic pressures are driving many of these shopping decisions, it is just one factor influencing private label. There's been a very strong push from retailers, and also improvements in both quality and selection have contributed significantly to the growth of the private label industry. And again, while we're talking about beauty, I'm sure you all know this is very true in the food industry as well. Not all private label categories are alike. Store brand share varies widely and still represents a minority stake. There is also a lot of consumer confusion, and I have actually done entire presentations on what's going on in the poor consumer's brain at the retail level. We launch anywhere from 12 to 16,000 personal care products a year. Those are not all private label, obviously, but so we're busy flooding the market with products. And one of the things that I love to remind anyone who will listen is that our job is one, as Phil said, and as is the title of this seminar, to really find ways we can connect with the consumer emotionally, but it also really behooves us to make sure that products we're launching are very clearly positioned and have a real point of difference. And I'm going to talk a little more about that as I get into my presentation. So I'm sort of going to cover another aspect of private label, and that is private label labs and manufacturers who create the products for retailers and marketers. And when I say marketer, I'm using the term quite broadly. So this could be a physician who wants to create a skincare line, it could be a makeup artist who wants to create a makeup line, or it could be a marketer in the more traditional sense of an Estee Lauder who is going outside their organization and looking for innovation from other sources. There's been in this industry, for those of you who track it, a huge paradigm shift, and certainly we've seen it all along the food chain in beauty, whether you're a raw material supplier, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a marketer. We're really going through a sea change of shift in the personal care industry. Much of it is consolidation, and that's been a lot of economic pressure. A lot of it is from larger companies who are now outsourcing. Some of them are very open about it. Procter & Gamble has readily admitted to 50% of innovation coming from outside of their organization. Companies like Estee Lauder are less public about it, but Estee Lauder started a whole new division called Beauty Bank, and Beauty Bank's mission is to find innovation outside of the organization. So these kinds of things are also driving the world of private label. And then, probably on a quieter level, or a little more behind the scenes, there are many, many small and mid-sized companies who do not have their own labs and manufacturers. So they rely 100% on outside, what we call private label labs and manufacturers, to create product for them. And what I'm going to just flip through a little bit quickly, this may be a little of a surprise to some of you. These are relatively well-known products which have not been manufactured by the marketing company. So they have come from, again, private label labs, private label manufacturers, and it may be a question of the marketing company or the marketing individual going to the lab and asking for innovation, Or it may be the lab is reaching out and promoting an innovation or a technology that they have. So it can come from either direction. But these are very successful, very well-known products. They have been developed by companies who do not have their own laboratories. So done by outside companies. So that's the world of private label that I'm speaking to. To manage this process, managing the innovation process with a private label manufacturer, I have sort of my laundry list of rules that you need to follow. Some of them are very self-evident, some of them are often taken for granted, and some of them, I'm sorry to say, are sorely neglected. So I'm just going to go through them. They're not necessarily in priority order. Obviously, you need to know how the business in your category is tracking. If you're in the bath and body business, if you're in the hair business, is there growth in that category or not? Is the business flat? Why? Is it a lack of innovation? Is it a shift, paradigm shift in how consumers are using those kinds of products? This is really important, and it sounds so obvious, but you'd be amazed how many people come to me to develop products and they haven't a clue where their category is sitting. Understand consumer trends in your category. Again, this may sound quite obvious, but so often I end up talking to clients who really don't know what the consumer drivers are in a particular category, and you really need to understand the consumer. I know it sounds so obvious. Build a powerful product brief, and I'm going to I'll put in a little more detail in another slide in just a minute talking about the product brief. This is sort of the roadmap for the product that you want to create, and it's really an engine for your innovation platform. Make the manufacturer your partner. Be honest, be transparent, be very upfront about what you can and can't do, what kind of marketing effort are you going to be going into, because the manufacturer, the lab, the manufacturer is putting in an enormous amount of time, effort, energy, money on his side, and you really do need to make it a partnership so that you're both in this together. Be realistic about your timing. Sounds so obvious, right? The first thing I tell a client is that it's usually going to take twice as long as you think to bring a product to market. It's just not an easy pathway. Work with experts. If you haven't done this before, hire some people who have. There are lots and lots of pitfalls and obstacles in your path, and it will be worth the expense to have someone with you who can kind of not only point you in the right direction, but come up with a plan B, because not every plan A is going to work. And you really have to be conscious of the entire package, and I mean that a bit in a holistic sense. A great formula in a package that doesn't deliver the formula really well with a thin marketing story is never going to make it. So you need the story, you need the formula, you need the technology, you need a great package, you need a great website. I mean, the list is long, but all of these things are really significant. The product brief, it has lots of different names depending on your background, but it's the product profile. It's what you put together, you as the founder or the marketer or the product developer. And you're going to hand this off to the lab that's going to create your product. And these are just a few of the things that I cover, and I'm going to touch on them just very quickly. Ingredients, again, this sounds pretty obvious, but you need to tell the lab what kinds of ingredients do you want in the formula, and what kinds of ingredients do you not want in the formula. Really, really important. You don't want the chemist out wasting a lot of time. Cost of goods. What's your suggested retail price? Generally speaking, and this is a gross generalization, but we tend to allow about 20% of the net suggested retail price for cost of goods. So that's your formula, that's your package, that's what it's going to cost to put the stuff in the package. That's a rough guideline, and certainly there's a lot of shifting within that, but to give you some kind of idea. You need to know this information up front because, again, you don't want the chemist out exploring really expensive ingredients only to discover 6 months later that you can't afford them, or vice versa. Obvious things like who's the target user, what are the target markets. Be mindful that global regulatory issues are vast, and the formulator needs to know where you're going to be selling the product. Is it North America? Is it Europe? Is it Asia? Is it China? Each of these groups has different regulatory issues, primarily from an ingredient point of view. Your launch strategy needs to be thought through, and you're out there saying, yes, but I'm just starting this process. How can I possibly have a launch strategy? You need a launch strategy. What are the benefits of the product? What do you want the consumer to walk away with? And this is where the whole emotional piece that we're talking about today comes into play. Obviously, we're hoping the consumer gets some physical benefits from this product, but she needs to have some emotional connections to this product, and that's where I put it, is under benefits. What is your marketing story? What are your quantities? What kind of aesthetics? And aesthetics do two things. The aesthetics, and that means the texture and the smell and the feel and the residue and the dry down and the playtime, all of the tactile things about the product, those will help the consumer from a left brain point of view understand what the product is doing. And from a right brain point of view, those aesthetics will connect the consumer to the product emotionally. So it's a really, really important piece. Function. Fragrance direction, this is another one. It sounds so obvious, but very often that fragrance decision is made very late in the process. And if anything causes a formula to fall apart, it is very often the fragrance. So you need to do your fragrance work up front so the chemist isn't having to redo the whole thing. Benchmarks and competition. Are there competitive products, aspects of competitive products that you like and you would like to use as a reference? Again, this is very, very helpful to a chemist. And this is just a small piece of it, but important things that are often not focused on as robustly as they should be. And this, I'm not going to read through all of it. It's a little bit long. If you go on my website, which is ygroup.com, I have a tab called Reality Check. And when I take on a new client, the first thing I do is I make them sit down and read Reality Check out loud. Because these are things that we just, we don't want to deal with. We don't want to face it. We don't want to understand, for example, that 80% of the personal care products that launch every year will not last for 2 years. I didn't make this up. Lots of big companies have done lots of studies on it. And less than 1% of them will earn $1 million. This is not to discourage people who are trying to get into the market. It's simply to say, you've got to do your homework up front, and most specifically, you need to connect with the consumer from a left brain point of view as well as a right brain point of view. So that emotional connection as well as that physical, technical ingredient connection with the product. So I'm not going to go through all of this. You can go on my website and take a look at it, but it's good advice. So in conclusion, the private label business at retail is going to continue to grow. And fortunately, we have one of my favorite people here today to talk about it from a retail point of view. Marsha's really living this in a major way, and I think the work that she's done is so indicative of where the business is going. So it's robust. It's an underdeveloped market in North America compared to Europe. It's a business that has changed dramatically. The quality is extraordinary today, and many private label brands compete directly, as far as I'm concerned, with national brands. They're doing a great job. Quality and innovation obviously are major drivers and very much need to be in the forefront of any product development process. Private label manufacturers will continue to be viable, and a statistic that, again, is often surprising to people who don't love statistics the way I do, and that is that 1/3 of the beauty business today is done by small and mid-sized companies who don't have their own labs, manufacturers, and R&D facilities. So that is all being done in private label manufacturers. And innovation, not commodity, must be the differentiator. And then I obviously would add to that that innovation needs to move the consumer to a place where she is not yet, both physically and emotionally. So this whole idea, which you're going to hear, I think, threaded through everyone's presentation today, is that finding this emotional connection with the consumer is as important as the innovation piece. And I think that's it. Marsha, you ready to go? Okay, I'll set you up.